Hello, everybody. It's John Johnston, CornNation with a reaction. They have released the full Big Ten schedules for 2024 dates and everything. Earlier, they had released who was going to play who. Now they released the dates and how the schedules are going to be laid out on BTN Live or Big Live, whatever the hell it's called, a little bit ago. And my first reaction to it, I'll get the calendar. Let me get the schedule up here and a little bit bigger, John. My first reaction to it is that this is not the terror-filled horror show that I thought it would be. In fact, I think this schedule is very favorable to Nebraska. The first impression I got is we're not starting the season with a conference road game. In fact, we start out with 4 home games, and they're pretty favorable home games. UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, and Illinois. And I think that's pretty – you could just look at this and say, well, we're going to go 4-0, but I think that's getting ahead of ourselves. But the key here is we're home for 4 pretty easy games or for 4 decent games. We don't know what Illinois is going to look like next year. And honestly, we don't know what Nebraska is going to look like either, and we shouldn't take things for granted, right? But 4 home games to start, and then we go to Purdue, and then Rutgers, and then at Indiana. And the first part of that schedule, let's be honest, it's a pretty easy start to the season for 2024. Now, is it going to be easy continued as we go on through the season? No, it's not, but we'll get to that in a minute. My other first impression is this is not going to be Ohio State's and Michigan's conference anymore. Those 2 teams, those 2 schools have ruled this conference for decades. And with the addition of Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, I'm not going to say those days are over, but there's certainly going to be a lot more contention for the top part of the conference. And it's going to be fun. And, I guess earlier you thought all this breakup, the death of the Pac-12 and, Texas, Oklahoma joining the SEC, and it looked like college football was going to be becoming a lot more professional. I think if you looked at the full Big Ten schedule and you looked at all the games, you're kind of like, how is this not exciting? I know it's a lot more NFL-like maybe, and then there's going to be a 12-team playoff, but this looks like a much more exciting college football future than you thought. I certainly think it looks like a great college football future, because sometimes on weekends now, there aren't really that many good games. And in the future, I mean, the Big Ten is going to be playing one hell of a schedule, all the teams in it. So let's see, I have some more notes here. Finishing 12-0 will be impossible. Finishing 10-2 and having that be an incredible season will become more the norm. And I know in years past, we've always talked about, can a 2-loss team make the playoff? Well, I think we're going to get used to a lot more of that, where it's going to be 10-2 or even 9-3 teams making the college football playoff, because it is expanding to 12. And there's going to be more room. And you'd have to think that the people who are making the selections are going to consider strength of schedule, because both the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get a lot more challenging next year. Okay, more notes. I wrote down, will depth be more important than 5 stars? And by that, I mean 5-star recruits. In other words, look at what's happened in Nebraska in 2023 with all the players we've lost to injury. And that has happened to a lot of other teams too. The game's stronger. The players are stronger, faster, and the hits bigger than they have ever been. That's just physics. And people are getting injured more often. So to get with more marquee games, does that increase the injury or doesn't it? Now, the key is this. The Big Ten is set up scheduling so that every team gets 2 bye weeks. And now it's time for us to move into the latter part of the 2024 Nebraska schedule and look at what happens after we play at Indiana. We play at Ohio State, UCLA in November in Lincoln, at USC in November in Southern California, which should be beautiful and fun, and then Wisconsin and Iowa. And I think the key here is that's supposed to be on Black Friday, but you never know what's going to happen with TV schedules in the future. So I wouldn't take that as 100%, but there the dates are for now. Here's the key. USC and UCLA both get a bye before they face Nebraska. So that'll make that tougher than you'd think, that just looking at the schedule. I mean, what a November. Yes, this is front loaded, or it's front loaded with easier games for Nebraska. And I think that's a good thing because I think Nebraska in 2024 will still be a very, very young team. And to get games against opponents where you can set up your team and figure out who's going to play and who isn't, well, let's 2023, this season, look back at Minnesota and think about, well, if we wouldn't have played Minnesota at the beginning of the year, where would we be in the Big Ten West now? Because I think we'd win a game if we played Minnesota right now. November, Nebraska is playing much better football. They know who they are than they were at the beginning of the season. And granted, we lost the game with turnovers, and it's still a great possibility that we lose games with turnovers. We are a much better team than we started the season. So you look ahead at 2024, you think a young team, or a team that's still probably breaking in a new quarterback, is going to have time to grow, and then they're going to face, kind of more of a juggernaut of a schedule coming into mid-October and November. And if you're thinking, well, that's going to be brutal, it's going to be really tough, and I wish we didn't have that schedule. Well, here's the good news. Everybody will be playing schedules like this. They're just going to be probably a little bit more spread out, but everybody in the Big Ten is going to be playing other tough Big Ten schedules, with the addition of those 4 non-slacky, non-dumpster teams. So it's going to be harder for everyone. And if you're worried about it, just keep that in mind. I don't know if I have a whole lot on this now, and I really haven't looked at the full Big Ten schedule. Although you'll notice that some teams, let's see, Michigan, Maryland, they start early, with the conference games early, and then UCLA, Indiana is the next conference game again early. And wait, I got this wrong. Well, I'll go over. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to go over the rest of the schedules later. But I think the key here is it's not a terror-filled schedule. It's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. And it's going to be, I think the Big Ten Conference has really set itself up as the best conference in football. And it's going to be a matter of whether or not we can do, if we can get through this juggernaut in one piece. And kind of, who is still playing good football in November, who still have all their players at the end of November so they can go into a 12-team playoff. I mean, so much is going to change next season. And I think that is a huge amount of fun. I would love to hear your thoughts on all this. And please, spread the videos around, subscribe, and thank you. Thank you all for watching, and take care. Go Big Red.